On the coldest morning of her life, a poor student with nothing but a threadbare backpack and a heart that refused to harden draped her only warm coat over the shivering shoulders of a silent beggar, unaware he was a billionaire, unaware she was touching a man who could buy the entire block she slept beside, unaware that this single act of kindness would shatter everything she thought she understood about struggle, wealth, and the human heart. She was a poor student, drowning in tuition, debt, exhaustion, and hunger. Yet she couldn't walk past suffering, and he was a beggar no one looked at twice, sitting in the fog as if hiding from the world he once ruled. But when he lifted his eyes to thank her, there was a depth, a pain, a quiet power that didn't match the rags he wore, a contradiction that pulled her into a story she wasn't prepared for. If she had known he was a billionaire, would she still have offered her coat? If he had known this poor student would become the one person who could break him or save him, would he have taken it? The morning fog hung heavy over Brookside Avenue, rolling in thick pale sheets that swallowed the cracked sidewalk and the rusting bus stop sign. The world felt muted, washed in gray, as if the day hadn't fully awakened. She stood there, the poor student, clutching her worn-out textbook to her chest and blowing warm breaths into her numb fingers. Her name was Alyssa Carter, a 21-year-old college junior barely holding onto her scholarship by a thinning thread. Between 2 part-time jobs, mountains of tuition debt, and nights she spent studying until her vision blurred, she felt like she was living in survival mode, drifting through life with a quiet desperation she hid behind tired smiles. Her shoes were soaked through, her stomach growled, her backpack strap was fraying again, and still Alyssa showed up. Always. That was the one thing she had control over. She wasn't thinking about anything except staying awake through her first class when she saw him again. The beggar. He sat on the low stone ledge beside the bus stop, hunched beneath layers of mismatched clothing, his gray hood pulled low over his unshaven face. But there was something about him, something that never fit the image of the broken man the world assumed he was. Something in how he sat, spine straight even in the cold. Something in the way he didn't beg, didn't ask, didn't look around with the desperation she often saw downtown. He was just quietly there, silent, controlled, contained, a contradiction wrapped in torn fabric. Every morning for the past 2 weeks, she had seen him exactly like this. Same spot, same posture, same haunting stillness. And every morning, she felt that same strange pull toward him, an instinctive awareness, as if his presence stirred something deep in her chest she couldn't name. Today, the fog made him look almost ghost-like. She hesitated only a second before walking closer. "Good morning," she whispered, unsure why she whispered, but somehow feeling that anything louder would break something delicate around him. His head lifted slightly, not enough to reveal his whole face, but enough for her to notice his eyes, dark, clear, and far too alert for someone living on the streets. They held an intensity that didn't match his worn boots or the dirt on his hands. Eyes that seemed to recognize her, even though they had never exchanged more than a few words. "Cold today," she added softly. He nodded once, slow, measured. She thought she saw a hint of gratitude in that motion, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. A gust of wind cut through her thin hoodie, making her shiver violently. The fog swirled around her legs. She hugged her arms around herself, trying to trap warmth, but it did nothing. That's when she noticed him watching her. Not with pity, not with the hollow look she often received from strangers. His gaze held something else, concern. Or was it recognition? It made her chest tighten unexpectedly. She forced a small smile. "I'll be okay," she said, even though her lips were losing color. He didn't speak, but he shifted slightly on the stone, as if resisting an urge to offer something he didn't have. The bus was late. Again. Minutes dragged. Wind worsened. Fog thickened. She rubbed her arms faster, teeth chattering. And he watched her silent, still, steady. Then something happened she didn't expect. He reached up and tugged his torn cloak tighter around himself, fingers gripping the fabric with hesitation, as if he wanted to offer it to her, as if the instinct to protect was stronger than his instinct to survive. But he didn't move. He just breathed slowly, as though holding back something heavy. She felt her heart twist. "Hey," she murmured, stepping closer. "You." You're colder than I am. He tilted his head, eyes flickering up to hers, questioning her logic. Alyssa swallowed. She couldn't explain why she did what she did next. She wasn't wealthy. She barely had enough food. She didn't even have a decent winter coat, just a worn brown one her mother bought from a thrift store 3 years ago. But she shrugged it off anyway. Her body trembled instantly, yet she didn't stop. She held the coat out to him with both hands. Please, take it, she whispered. The beggar froze. His eyes widened, barely, but enough for her to see surprise, real, raw surprise, as if kindness was something foreign to him, something he hadn't felt in years. He didn't reach for it. Really? She insisted softly. I'm okay. You need it more. For a moment, she thought he might refuse. But then, slowly, almost reluctantly, he lifted one hand. His fingers brushed the fabric, and she felt something electric, something familiar yet unexplainable, shoot through her chest. His hands weren't like a beggar's hands. Not rough enough, not damaged enough. They were calloused but not broken. Strong, defined, steady. Hands of a man used to holding power. Not cardboard, not coins. She blinked, confused by the thought. Why would a powerful man sit here? Why would he choose this fog-drenched corner? He took the coat finally, held it, looked at it like an artifact he didn't deserve, and then he whispered his first word. Why? The question wasn't suspicious. It was, wounded. Alyssa swallowed, her voice barely breath, because no one deserves to freeze alone. Something in his expression cracked, not visibly, but emotionally she felt it like a shift in the air. Before either of them could speak again, the bus roared up through the fog. Alyssa stepped back. He looked at her like he wanted to stop her, like he needed to say something. But the moment passed, swallowed by the noise of brakes hissing and doors creaking open. She climbed aboard. He watched her go, and for the first time since she first saw him, he looked afraid. Afraid she wouldn't come back. The next morning, Alyssa arrived at the bus stop earlier than usual, breath forming pale clouds as the dawn light bled weakly through the mist. She didn't know why she hurried. She didn't know why her heart beat faster as she approached the stone ledge. She only knew that she hoped desperately that he would be there. He was, sitting in the exact same spot, wrapped in the coat she'd given him. It swallowed him awkwardly, the sleeves slightly too short for his long arms. But seeing it on him made something warm bloom in her chest, a gentle relief she didn't expect to feel. He looked up the moment she stepped into the fog. Their eyes met. He didn't smile. He wasn't the kind of man who smiled easily, but the air between them shifted in a way she couldn't explain. As if her presence mattered. As if her return had answered a silent question he carried all night. Good morning, she said, breathless in a way that had nothing to do with the cold. He gave a faint nod. Does it fit okay? She asked. His gaze lowered to the coat. He tugged on the collar lightly, almost shyly. Warm, he murmured. It was only one word, but it felt like he'd shared something intimate. Alyssa sat on the bus stop bench, glancing at him from the corner of her eye. He sat straight-backed, even when slouched under layers. No slump in his shoulders like she saw in most homeless men. His posture was almost military, or corporate, controlled, reserved. And his hands, God, his hands. Yesterday, she thought it might have been her imagination. Today she saw clearly. His hands were too refined for street life. Long fingers, even knuckles. Calloused, yes, but not the deep, cracked kind caused by sleeping on cement. These were hands that once wrote signatures, held steering wheels of luxury cars, maybe typed at polished glass desks. Her curiosity grew, heavy and warm in her chest. Did you sleep okay? She ventured. He blinked, slowly. I sleep where I can. Not on the street, not in the shelter, not behind the building. A vague answer from a man who didn't want to lie but couldn't tell the truth. Alyssa swallowed. Do you have family? She asked gently. His jaw tightened. The fog swirled around them, carrying the faint sound of distant traffic. He didn't turn to her, but she saw it, the flicker of pain in his eyes. No. One simple syllable, said too fast, too sharp. Lie. It felt like a lie. Not the kind spoken by someone ashamed, no. It felt like the kind spoken by someone protecting something. Or someone. She didn't press. Instead, she opened the small paper bag she carried. I brought you something. He stiffened, as if he didn't know how to react. It's just breakfast, she said gently. A sandwich. And tea. It's not much. He looked at the bag like it was a gift worth more than anything he owned. You shouldn't, he said quietly. Why not? She asked, smiling softly. His eyes lingered on her face, as if searching for the catch, as if this simple kindness made him wary. Not for me, he said. You need it more. A laugh slipped from her lips, small and tired. Trust me, she whispered. If I don't eat one meal, I'll survive. And you look like you haven't had a good one in weeks. He didn't deny it. He just looked away, the muscles in his throat tightening. She pushed the bag gently toward him. Please. He accepted it reluctantly, as though taking it meant crossing a line he wasn't supposed to cross. His hands brushed hers again. That same strange electric shock. Not romantic, something deeper, something inexplicable, something like recognition. He opened the bag slowly. The fog curled around his fingers as he lifted the sandwich. Alyssa expected him to devour it. Instead, he paused, closed his eyes briefly, and took a single, slow bite, as if savoring it, as if it had been years since someone gave him something with no conditions attached. Thank you, he whispered. She exhaled, breath hitching in her chest. A bus rumbled in the distance, still blocks away. They had time. Silence settled over them, comfortable this time. Can I ask you something? She said softly. He turned to her. Why this place? Why sit here every day? A long pause, long enough for her breath to turn icy in her lungs. Finally, he spoke. I can see things from here, he murmured. The fog thickened, as if reacting to his words. What things? She asked. He hesitated again. This man, this beggar, wasn't scatterbrained or lost like so many she had met volunteering at shelters. He wasn't confused. He chose every word with deliberate care. Memories, he said at last. The answer made her shiver, though she wasn't cold. Something about the way he said, it's soft, haunted, hinted at stories buried far deeper than poverty. What kind of memories? She pressed gently. He turned away, gaze fixed on an invisible point across the street. Ones I shouldn't forget. His voice cracked on shouldn't, almost imperceptibly. Alyssa felt something tug inside her chest, instinctive, protective, as if he wasn't a stranger, as if she'd known him before, as if her soul recognized him even if her mind didn't. You don't have to tell me anything, she whispered, but you don't have to face everything alone either. His breath caught. He looked at her again, eyes darker than the fog, filled with something she couldn't understand yet, something like hope, dangerous hope. The bus screeched up to the stop, interrupting the moment. Alyssa stood reluctantly. See you tomorrow? She asked before she could stop herself. He looked at her like her presence was the one thing tethering him to the world. Yes, he said quietly. And for the first time, he meant it. That evening, after her last class dragged to a close and the campus lights flickered on one by one, Alyssa walked home with a heaviness she couldn't shake. Not physical exhaustion, she was used to that, but a tighter, more emotional weight she didn't understand. Every time she blinked, she saw his face. The way he held the sandwich like it was sacred. The way he said memories like the word itself hurt. The way he looked at her as if her kindness meant something dangerous. Her tiny apartment smelled faintly of damp carpet and dollar store lavender spray. The radiator clanked uselessly. Bills sat on the kitchen table like small threats waiting to grow teeth. She tossed her backpack down and slumped into the single chair, massaging her aching temples. Then her phone buzzed. Mom. Alyssa hesitated before answering. Her mother always tried to sound upbeat, but every conversation reminded Alyssa how close they were to losing the house back in Ohio. Hi, Mom. Hey, baby, her mother said. You sound tired. I'm okay. Alyssa lied automatically. You working too much again? A bitter laugh slipped out. If I don't, the scholarship disappears. Her mother sighed. I wish I could help more. "You're helping enough," Alyssa whispered, though they both knew it wasn't true. They were each hanging on by threadbare ropes, pretending the ropes weren't fraying. After a few minutes of reassuring her mother she was fine, Alyssa hung up and exhaled shakily. She looked at the bills again. Tuition, rent, electricity, bus pass, medical fees from last semester when she fainted during midterms. She pressed her palms to her face. "Get it together, Alyssa." She stood, forcing herself toward the bathroom mirror. Her reflection looked older than 21, tired eyes, dark circles, hair pulled back because she couldn't afford salon visits anymore. But beneath that weariness was something else. Something awake. The way the beggar had looked at her today wouldn't leave her mind. He wasn't ordinary. And it wasn't just his hands or posture. It was the way he carried grief, controlled it, choked it down like a man who'd spent years practicing silence. She remembered his word memories and suddenly her mind slipped back into the flashback she hadn't visited in years. Her father, sitting at the dining table the night he left, staring at the wall instead of at her, his shoulders straight, his voice controlled. "Some things aren't meant to be talked about, Allie," he'd said. "Not everything is yours to know." He'd walked out that night, leaving only silence behind. The beggar's tone had echoed that same kind of haunted restraint. Alyssa pulled herself from the memory and let out a slow, unsteady breath. There was something wrong with the story he presented, something that didn't line up no matter how. She rearranged the pieces. The next morning, she arrived at the bus stop even earlier. The fog was thinner, revealing more of the broken pavement and graffiti-smeared bench. And there he was, sitting exactly where she expected him. But today, something was different. He wasn't slouched under his hood. He was sitting straighter, hands clasped loosely in his lap, staring at the horizon with a distant, calculating expression. Like a man planning, like a man thinking, like a man strategizing, not surviving. When she approached, he turned his head. His eyes softened the moment they landed on her. And the shift was almost jarring, like witnessing a skyscraper bend. "Hi," Alyssa whispered, smiling. "You came," he said quietly. "I told you I would." The fog curled around their feet, and something like relief flickered in his eyes. She sat down beside him, closer than before, drawn by something she didn't yet trust herself to name. "Are you hungry again?" she asked. He didn't nod, didn't ask, didn't beg. But she saw the truth in his eyes and handed him the simple breakfast she packed. As he ate slowly, she watched him, really watched him. His posture was perfect, his movements controlled, his eyes sharp. His voice, whenever he gave her a soft "thank you," carried a deep, smooth resonance that didn't fit street life. And then, as he lifted the cup of tea, the sleeve of her coat slipped back just enough for her to see a faint, pale scar along his wrist. A clean scar. A surgical scar. Her heart skipped. That wasn't a wound from rough living. That was from a hospital. A private physician. A careful procedure. She swallowed. "Does your wrist hurt sometimes?" He froze, lowering the cup. "How did you?" "I saw the scar." A cold silence filled the air. His jaw tightened, eyes narrowing not with anger, but with fear. Fear that she was getting close to something he couldn't hide forever. "It's nothing," he said too quickly. "Everyone has a story," she whispered. His eyes met hers, and something sharp cracked behind them, something she wasn't supposed to see. "I had a life," he said quietly, voice trembling at the edges. "A different one." Her breath caught, her pulse raced, and then he looked away. The fog drifted between them like a thin curtain. "And then," he whispered, "it ended." Alyssa felt her chest tighten painfully, not because of what he said, but how he said it. The kind of loss in his voice wasn't financial. It wasn't about losing a home or a job. It was the loss of identity, the loss of someone he once was, the loss of someone he loved. Alyssa didn't know why tears stung her eyes, but they did. She reached out, not touching him, but close enough that he could feel the warmth from her hand. "You don't have to tell me everything," she said softly. "But you don't have to be alone in it." His eyes snapped back to hers, wide, raw, almost fragile. No one had said that to him in years. Maybe ever. Before he could respond, The bus roared up the street, sending vibrations through the broken pavement. He stood abruptly. "Alyssa," he said, voice breathless. "Be careful with me." She blinked. "Why?" His eyes darkened, full of warnings she didn't yet understand. "Because I am not who you think I am." Then the bus arrived, and he didn't get on. She boarded, heart pounding, staring at him through the fogged window. He watched her leave, and this time, he looked terrified. The next morning, Alyssa arrived even earlier, heart racing under her thin hoodie, her breath little bursts of steam in the cold air. She kept rehearsing what she wanted to tell him, how she didn't care about his scars, or his secrets, or his contradictions, how she didn't need to know everything, how she just wanted him to know he wasn't alone. But when she reached the bus stop, he wasn't there. The stone ledge was empty, the fog thicker than usual, swallowing the space where he always sat. Her breath stalled, her steps slowed. She scanned the sidewalk, the alley, the store across the street. Nothing. The world felt wrong, quiet in the wrong places, loud in the wrong ones. She hugged her arms around herself as the cold gnawed at her skin. Maybe he was late. He never was. Not once. She sat on the bench, bouncing her knee, glancing up every few seconds. The bus arrived. She didn't board. She waited until the next one. And the next. He didn't come. By noon, panic tinged her breath. She skipped her first class, then the second. She walked the block 4 times, checking behind dumpsters, around corners, near the little underpass where some homeless men sometimes slept. No sign of him. No flutter of his torn hood. No echo of his quiet presence. By the time she clocked in for her evening shift at the campus bookstore, her mind was spinning, her chest tight, vision blurry with worst-case scenarios. Her manager scolded her for being late, but she barely heard him. She kept seeing his face, the way his eyes trembled yesterday, the warning in his voice. "Be careful with me." What did that mean? Be careful because he was dangerous? Or because someone else was? When her shift ended at 10 p.m., she went straight back to the bus stop. The fog had lifted, replaced by a sharp, icy wind that cut through her like shards. She tightened her hoodie, clutching it close as her teeth rattled. Still no one. The ledge was empty. Again. The next morning she returned. Earlier. Before sunrise. Before the streetlights even flickered off. Her breath came out shaky as she scanned the spot. He wasn't there. Her knees weakened. She dropped onto the cold bench, tears pricking her eyes. The fog, thinner today, revealed every crack in the concrete, every bit of trash caught in the curb, every sign that the world kept moving, while something had stopped for her. For the next 2 days, she searched nonstop, between classes, before work, after work, at dawn, at night. She walked farther, 5 blocks, then 10, then 15, hoping to find him sitting somewhere else, maybe another shelter, maybe another corner. Each time she failed, her chest tightened more. She began asking around, "Have you seen a man who sits at that bus stop? Wears an old gray hoodie, quiet, tall, dark eyes?" Most shook their heads. A few shrugged. One man said, "People disappear all the time. You can't get attached." Attached. The word lodged in her throat like a stone. She didn't know when she'd grown attached. Maybe it was the first day she saw him, or the day she gave him her coat, or the moment he whispered, "Why?" Like kindness was pain. She lay awake that night, staring at her cracked ceiling, replaying every detail. The surgical scar, his posture, his hands, his careful speech, his warnings, his memories. Everything pointed to a truth she couldn't yet grasp, but also a danger she didn't understand. By the 4th day, Alyssa's desperation turned into fear. Real fear. Fear he had frozen somewhere. Fear he had been hurt. Fear someone he ran from had found him. Fear he was gone forever. Her anxiety throbbed in her chest like a pulse she couldn't slow. She felt it when she tried to study, when she greeted customers at work, when she pretended to laugh with classmates, when she walked home alone in the cold night. She checked the bus stop again. Still empty. She pressed a hand to her chest, breath trembling. "Where are you?" she whispered into the wind. On the sixth day, she reached the edge of breaking. She stood at the bus stop, clutching her backpack like a lifeline. Snowflakes drifted from the sky, soft and cold against her cheeks. She fought the rising ache in her throat, but it kept swelling, pressing upward until it became a sob she couldn't swallow anymore. Her voice broke into the empty morning air. "You promised," she whispered. A tear slid down her cheek. "Why didn't you come back?" The world felt hollow, too quiet, too large. She began pacing again, scanning the street as if sheer willpower could conjure him. She walked farther, boots crunching on thin frost. Her heart hurt so much it felt physical. She rounded the corner near the abandoned bakery and froze. A dark stain on the pavement. Her breath caught. She knelt, touched it. Not blood oil, but her pulse still raced, wild with panic, imagining everything that could have happened to him. Wrong turn, wrong person, wrong night. She stood, dizzy, gripping the wall for support. "Please," she whispered to a God she wasn't even sure listened. Let him be okay. On the seventh morning, she almost didn't go to the bus stop. The pain was too heavy, but habit, or hope, or something nameless dragged her back one more time. Her steps slowed. The air felt different, too still, too expectant. She thought it was her imagination until she heard it. The low, smooth hum of an engine. Not an old car, not a bus, something cleaner, sleeker, stronger. A black luxury car glided to a stop beside her. Its windows were tinted. The back door opened. Her breath froze in her lungs, and a man stepped out, not a beggar, not someone broken, not someone hiding. A tall, clean-shaven, sharply dressed man in a tailored coat, polished shoes, and eyes she recognized instantly. Eyes she had been searching for. He stepped toward her, the cold air swirling around him like a curtain. "Alyssa," he said softly. Her knees buckled. He caught her, and the world shattered. For a moment, Alyssa couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't even process what she was seeing. The man holding her wasn't the silent, fog-covered beggar she'd grown attached to. This man, this version of him, stood tall and confident, wrapped in a charcoal coat that looked like it belonged in high-end magazines, not thrift stores. His hair was clean, dark and styled, not matted under a hood. His jaw clean-shaven. His hands, those hands she'd memorized, were steady, elegant, and strong. But the eyes, those were the same. Haunted, intelligent, searching her face with a desperate tenderness as though he had feared he'd never see her again. "Alyssa," he repeated, his voice richer, smoother, a refined tone she had never heard from him before. She stumbled backward, her knees weak. "You, who?" He stepped closer, but not too close, careful, as if afraid she might run. "My name is Ethan," he said softly. Ethan Hale. The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it, controlled, measured, heavy with meaning, made her stomach twist. "I didn't want you to find out like this," he continued, voice low with regret. "But I couldn't stay away anymore." Alyssa blinked rapidly, her breath turning to steam in the freezing air. Her heart thudded so violently it felt like it might bruise her ribs. "You disappeared," she whispered, voice trembling. "I thought you were dead. I thought—" He flinched. "I know. I'm sorry. I never wanted to scare you." "Where were you?" she demanded, tears burning behind her eyes. "Why did you leave without saying anything?" I looked everywhere. I thought something happened. Her voice broke, and for the first time, she saw the polished version of him crack. His breath hitched, his jaw tightened. "I left because people recognized me," he said quietly, "and I couldn't risk being exposed. Not yet, not before I told you myself." "Exposed?" Her voice sharpened. "Exposed as what?" He took a slow breath, the kind someone takes before dropping a truth that changes everything. "As the heir," he said softly, "to the Hale Empire." Alyssa stared blankly. I don't know what that means." He didn't look offended. He looked relieved. "Most people do. It's a global conglomerate construction, real estate, aerospace, tech, Hospitality. My family built it across 4 generations. His voice softened. My mother built most of it, actually. Her throat tightened. So you're saying, you're a billionaire? His silence was answer enough, but then he nodded once, slow, reluctant, as if admitting it pained him. Alyssa stumbled back again, her breath coming fast. Her coat, the one she had given him, hung neatly folded inside the luxury car. She saw it through the window, and the sight made her heart twist violently. You were sitting in the cold, she whispered, freezing, alone. Why? Ethan swallowed hard. The polished exterior wavered again, revealing the man she'd known under the rags. I needed to disappear, he said finally. After my mother died, everything became noise. Meetings, lawyers, board members circling like wolves, my sister pushing to take control, and me, being forced into a role I wasn't ready for, a role that felt like a prison. So you walked away? She breathed. His eyes dropped to the ground. I broke, and walking away was the only way I knew how to breathe again. A tear slipped from her eye before she could stop it. You sat at the bus stop every day. He nodded. It was quiet there, and it faced a place I couldn't forget. A chill ran through her. What place? He hesitated too long. Pain flickered across his features, deep and unsettling. Not yet, he whispered. She didn't understand, and he wasn't ready to explain. But she sensed something enormous, something dark and heavy, lurking beneath the surface. Why didn't you tell me? Alyssa asked, voice cracking. Why let me think you were homeless? Why let me worry? Why not just say who you are? He stepped closer, eyes glistening with something raw. Because you were the first person in years who looked at me and didn't see money, he whispered. The first who didn't want anything from me. The first who gave without expecting anything in return. His voice shook. If I had told you the truth, I was afraid I'd lose the only real thing I've had since my mother died. Her chest tightened painfully. The air between them thickened with emotion, fear, longing, confusion, connection. And when you gave me your coat, he whispered, voice cracking, I didn't know how to handle it. No one gives billionaires anything. Ever. He reached into the car and carefully lifted the coat, holding it like something precious. I kept it safe, he murmured, every thread of it. Her vision blurred with tears. I wasn't giving it to a billionaire, she whispered. I was giving it to someone who looked cold. That's why I came back, he said softly. That's why I had to show you the truth. Because you deserve answers. And because, his voice shook, because I couldn't let you think I abandoned you. Her breath caught. Get in the car, Alyssa, he said gently. Please. There's so much I need to tell you. Her heart pounded, her world tilted, her feet wouldn't move. But then he whispered, I missed you. And her resistance shattered, hands trembling. She stepped toward him and he opened the door. The moment Alyssa stepped inside the sleek black car, the temperature rose, wrapping her in warmth so foreign it made her shiver. The interior was silent, polished, immaculate soft leather seats, glowing dashboard, faint scent of cedar and something sharper beneath it. She sat stiffly, hands entwined tightly in her lap, heart racing so loud she wondered if he could hear it. Ethan closed the door gently behind her and circled to the other side. When he slid into the seat beside her, the car felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier with a strange mixture of tension and relief, like he'd been holding his breath for days and finally exhaled. The driver didn't turn around. Instead, he pressed a button, and a privacy screen rose silently, enclosing them in a cocoon of quiet. Alyssa swallowed hard. Ethan turned toward her slowly. Gone was the shaky, stiff posture she'd seen at the bus stop. Now he moved with a calm confidence, a controlled grace reserved for men raised in power. But the vulnerability in his eyes, that hasn't changed. He studied her face as if memorizing every line. I didn't know how to tell you, he said softly. Every day I sat there, thinking I would, and every day I watched you walk toward me, and I couldn't. Alyssa's voice was barely a whisper. Why? He inhaled slowly, shoulders tense. Because when people know who I am, they change. Their voices change. Their goals change. Their behavior changes. The air around me, Changes. His jaw tightened. But you talked to me like I mattered. Not because of money, not because of what I could give, but because you saw someone cold and hurting. His voice dipped, pained. I didn't want to lose that. She looked down at her trembling hands. I don't care about your money. I know, he said quickly, almost too quickly. That's why I'm telling you everything now. The car moved slowly through morning streets, the city passing in soft blurs. Alyssa kept stealing glances at him, this new version of him, polished and powerful, but every time their eyes met, she saw the same quiet woundedness beneath the surface. What happened to you? She asked quietly. Why would someone like you sit on a cold street corner every day? Ethan leaned back, exhaling deeply. My life wasn't mine. Not anymore. He paused. After my mother died, everything collapsed. Alyssa's chest tightened. I'm sorry. He nodded faintly. She built the majority of the Hale Empire. She was brilliant, ruthless at times, but fair, ethical, strong. His voice softened with grief. She was the only person who believed I could lead one day. And when she died suddenly, without warning, the board wanted someone else. Your sister? Alyssa asked gently. His jaw clenched. Morgan is sharp, calculated. She believes everything belongs to her. She thinks I'm too soft, too emotional, too unwilling to make the brutal choices. Alyssa studied him. That part she already sensed. He was not a hard man, not a cold one. His silence didn't come from cruelty, it came from wounds. What were you running from? She whispered. He closed his eyes for a moment. The accident. Alyssa's pulse spiked. What accident? A shadow crossed his face. 2 of our construction workers died in a scaffold collapse last year. Faulty reinforcement, negligence. There were warnings sent to upper management that the project needed reevaluation. He swallowed hard. My mother saw the reports the same week she died. And you blamed yourself? Alyssa asked softly. His throat tightened. I was supposed to oversee that project. I was supposed to be there. I should have caught the warning signs. My mother trusted me with it. His voice cracked. When they died, I felt like the blood was on my hands. And then she died, and everything inside me. He paused. Everything inside me broke. Alyssa's heart twisted painfully. She reached out instinctively, placing a hesitant hand over his. His breath hitched, eyes flicking down to where their hands touched as if her touch grounded him. I left after the funeral, he whispered. I walked out of the estate, out of the boardroom, out of the world that expected perfection. His shoulders slumped, and I never went back. Alyssa blinked rapidly, as understanding flooded her. You weren't living, she said softly. You were drowning. Something in his expression cracked open. Yes. And the bus stop? He hesitated. I sat facing the place where the collapse happened, he said quietly. I couldn't get near it, but I had to see it. I had to feel it. I had to remind myself not to forget. Alyssa's breath trembled. Ethan. He turned toward her slowly, eyes raw. And then you came, he whispered. Her chest tightened so sharply it almost hurt. I didn't do anything. You did everything. His voice shook with emotion. You gave me warmth. You gave me food. You talked to me. You didn't try to fix me. You didn't ask me for anything. You just cared. Her eyes stung with tears. You made me feel human again, Alyssa. He exhaled shakily. You pulled me back into the world. A long moment passed between them, quiet, intimate, heavy with meaning neither fully understood yet. The car rolled to a gentle stop. Alyssa looked outside and gasped softly. They were parked in front of a wrought iron gate taller than a house, flanked by stone pillars and golden crests. Beyond it, she saw the outline of a sprawling estate, grand, imposing, beautiful. Ethan's world. So far from hers it felt like another planet. He watched her reaction carefully. I know it's a lot. She swallowed hard. Ethan, I don't belong here. He reached for her hand again, soft, hesitant, almost afraid. You belong wherever you are valued, he whispered, and you deserve to be here, because you saved me before I even knew how to save myself. Her breath caught. Emotion swelled so fiercely inside her she couldn't speak. "Come inside," he said gently. "Please, there's more I need to show you." The gate began to open. Her world, about to change forever. The iron gates creaked open slowly, almost ceremonially, as if acknowledging the return of someone important, someone who had been gone too long. Alyssa swallowed hard as the car rolled forward, tires crunching lightly over the long, winding stone driveway. Trees lined the path like silent sentinels, their branches arching overhead to form a natural cathedral. The mansion came into view gradually, first the towering columns, then the vast windows, then the grand stone facade that looked more like an old-world estate than a modern billionaire's home. Alyssa's breath hitched. It wasn't just big. It was enormous. A world built on wealth she had never even imagined. It made her tiny apartment feel like a different universe. Ethan watched her carefully. "You don't have to be afraid," he murmured. She didn't reply. She couldn't. Her throat felt tight, her palms cold even in the warm car. The vehicle stopped at the front entrance. 2 staff members opened the doors, simultaneously, their movements crisp and trained. They didn't look at her with confusion or contempt. They didn't look at her at all. Their expressions remained neutral, professional, as Ethan stepped out and extended his hand to help her. She hesitated. He noticed. "Alyssa," he said gently, "nothing here matters unless you walk inside with me. Just take my hand." His voice softened in a way that made something inside her chest loosen. She placed her trembling fingers into his. His hand closed around hers, warm and steady, grounding her as she stepped onto the marble steps. The entrance hall was breathtaking. Soaring ceilings, a grand chandelier dripping crystals like frozen rain, polished marble floors reflecting the soft golden glow of the lights, floor-to-ceiling windows spilling sunlight across gleaming surfaces. The scent of something subtle and expensive sandalwood maybe lingered in the air. Alyssa felt small, too small. The staff members bowed, slightly to Ethan. "Welcome home, Mr. Hale." He flinched, and she saw the word home didn't sit comfortably on him. "Thank you," he murmured. Then his gaze returned to her, checking for signs of overwhelm. She wasn't overwhelmed. She was drowning. She followed him into the main hall, her steps hesitant. Every sound echoed the click of her cheap shoes, the quiet hum of the chandelier. Portraits lined the walls, each one large and regal. Ethan paused in front of one particular painting, a woman in a white suit, sharp jawline, confident eyes, and a subtle smile that held both power and compassion. She looked like someone who could run empires and still tuck her child into bed. "My mother," he said quietly. Alyssa studied the painting. "She looks strong." "She was everything," Ethan whispered. "This house, this empire, all of this was hers. She built it from ashes. She fought every board member, every investor, every critic, and she believed, I could take over one day." Alyssa glanced at him. He looked so different now, smaller, suddenly. A boy speaking of someone who shaped his world. "What happened to her?" she asked softly. His jaw tightened. "A heart attack. Out of nowhere. She didn't drink, didn't smoke, exercise daily. Doctors said stress." He exhaled shakily. "The board moved in fast after her funeral, faster than I could grieve." Alyssa stepped a little closer, as if closeness was the only comfort she could offer. "They pushed you?" "They cornered me," he said flatly. "They wanted a leader who fit their agenda, not someone who cared about workers or ethics. My sister was their choice." He swallowed. "I tried to fight. I tried to step up, but I was drowning in guilt over the accident. And Morgan knew it." Alyssa frowned. "She used it against you?" Ethan nodded. "She told the board I wasn't emotionally stable, that I wasn't ready, that I would destroy the company our mother built." "That isn't true," Alyssa whispered. He gave her a devastated smile. "But I believed it." Her heart cracked. "And the accident," he murmured, eyes drifting to the window as if replaying the moment. "I couldn't escape the images. I had nightmares for months. When I finally broke, I walked out of the boardroom, stripped off everything that tied me to this life, and disappeared. No one knew where I went." He paused. "Except you." Those two words hit her harder than the mansion's grandeur. She had been the only person in the world who saw him. Not the billionaire, not the heir, not the failure he believed he was, just Ethan. He led her deeper into the mansion, through the halls, past elegant rooms, past staff who respectfully pretended not to stare. Eventually, they reached a massive glass room overlooking the estate gardens. Alyssa walked to the window, unable to hide her awe. Vast green lawns stretched endlessly. A fountain sparkled beneath the sunlight. Rows of flowers impossibly bright lined the paths. "This is too much," she whispered. "All of this. I don't belong here, Ethan." He stepped behind her, voice soft but firm. "You belong wherever kindness is rare and needed. And here," he gestured around the vast mansion, "kindness is scarce." She turned to him, her eyes shining with uncertainty. "Why show me all this? Why bring me here?" He met her gaze with a vulnerability that shook her. "Because I need you to understand where I come from, before you can help me face where I have to go." "Go, go," she echoed. His expression darkened slightly. "There's a storm coming. My sister won't let me reclaim my role quietly. And the deeper truth behind the accident, it isn't what I told you." A cold shiver ran down her spine. "Ethan," she whispered. "What are you saying?" He swallowed, eyes haunted. "That the past is bigger than me. And it's coming for us both." Alyssa barely slept that night. Ethan had shown her the guest room bigger than her entire apartment, with a plush bed she didn't dare sit on, and soft lighting that made everything look unreal. She lay awake staring at the ornate ceiling, replaying his words over and over. "The accident isn't what I told you. The past is coming for us both. My sister won't let me reclaim my role quietly." His world wasn't just wealth and marble floors. It was shadows, power, and ghosts. By the time morning light crept through the curtains, she felt nauseous with nerves. She didn't know the rules of this world. She didn't know what fork to use, how to talk to staff, or how to walk across a room without feeling like everyone could see her poverty stitched into her skin. But she followed the soft clinking sounds toward the breakfast room, forcing herself to keep her chin up. Ethan was already there, sitting at a long glass table polished to a mirrored shine. A spread of breakfast foods covered it: pastries, fruits, eggs, dishes she didn't know the names of. He stood the moment he saw her. "You slept?" he asked. She nodded, though they both knew she hadn't. He moved to pull out a chair for her, a small gesture that sent warmth through her chest. She sat, unsure where to place her hands. "You don't have to be nervous," he said softly. She opened her mouth to respond, but the air shifted subtly, sharply as footsteps approached from the hallway. Confident, crisp, rhythmically steady. Alyssa recognized power before she even saw the person. Then the doorway filled with a tall woman in a tailored charcoal suit, her hair pulled into a perfect knot, her expression cut like glass, sharp cheekbones, piercing gray eyes, and a cold aura that made Alyssa straighten instinctively. Morgan Hale, the sister. She stopped in the doorway, gaze landing on Ethan first. Something flickered there: annoyance, disbelief, maybe betrayal. "Ethan," she said coolly. "So the rumors were true." He stiffened. "Morgan." Her eyes slid to Alyssa slowly, deliberately, like a scanning laser assessing a threat, and then her lips curved into a smile so thin it wasn't a smile at all. "Well," she took one step inside. "You've brought home a guest." Alyssa felt her cheeks heat. She stood reflexively, unsure whether to extend a hand or bow, or just disappear into the floor. "Hi," she managed. I know who you are," Morgan said, voice smooth like silk hiding a blade. "You're the girl who sits at the bus stop, wearing thrift clothing, carrying broken backpacks." She tilted her head. "I've had you looked into." Alyssa's heart dropped. Ethan stepped forward immediately, protective fire in his eyes. "Morgan, that's enough." She ignored him. "I must admit," Morgan continued, circling the table with graceful precision, "I'm impressed. It takes a certain talent for someone with nothing to worm her way into a billionaire's home." She faced Alyssa. "Tell me, did you know who he was from the beginning? Did you plan this?" Alyssa's stomach twisted. "No. I didn't even know his last name. How convenient. Morgan's tone dripped skepticism. I didn't, Alyssa repeated, voice firmer. Morgan arched a brow. Are we supposed to believe you gave your only coat to a stranger out of pure kindness? Ethan stepped between them, jaw tight. Alyssa is not what you're implying. I'll admit the act is clever, innocent, tender, very believable. Ethan always did fall for the weakest thing in the room. Alyssa's breath caught. Ethan stiffened. The air froze. And look at you now, brother. Morgan continued softly. Bringing home a girl who has no idea how to survive in this world. Is this your rebellion? Your therapy project? Or simply desperation, dressed in foulest charity? Alyssa swallowed hard, fighting the burn of humiliation. Ethan's voice was low, dangerous. You don't talk to her like that. Morgan's smile hardened. Then tell me what she is doing here. I invited her, he said. She helped me more than anyone in this house ever has. Morgan laughed short, sharp, disbelieving. She helped you? Ethan. She doesn't even know which fork goes with what. She can't navigate a room full of shareholders, let alone a corporate war. You think this? She gestured dismissively toward Alyssa. We'll survive even an hour in our world. Alyssa felt her pulse in her throat. Her fingers curled against the table, nails digging into her palms. She'd been insulted before by professors who doubted her, bosses who dismissed her, customers who sneered at her clothes, but this cut deeper. She opened her mouth to speak, but Ethan beat her to it. You don't get to decide who belongs here, he said, voice vibrating with emotion. Mother didn't build this empire for you to weaponize it against everyone who doesn't fit your mold. Morgan's eyes flickered briefly. Something like anger, or maybe old pain. Mother built this empire because she knew the world only respects power, Morgan said coldly. Not weakness, not pity, and certainly not charity cases. Alyssa flinched. Ethan stepped closer to Morgan, voice low with fury. Alyssa is the reason I'm alive. Morgan froze. Alyssa's breath caught. He hadn't meant to say it, it slipped out, raw and unguarded. Morgan's expression shifted, but it was impossible to read anger, surprise, disbelief, maybe even jealousy. How dramatic, Morgan finally said. But drama won't save you when the board calls the emergency meeting this afternoon. Your disappearance has consequences, Ethan. And your little companion here. She looked Alyssa up and down again. She will be eaten alive. Then she turned sharply and walked out, steps crisp and echoing. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Alyssa sank into her chair, feeling small, ashamed, out of place. Ethan sat beside her, face tight with anger and guilt. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't know she'd do that. Alyssa stared at the table, her voice thin. She's right. I don't belong here. Ethan's eyes darkened. Hurt, fear, desperation flashing across his expression. Alyssa, he said, leaning closer. You belong with me. But his voice trembled because even he wasn't entirely sure that was true.